Welcome to the W.T.F. Where's the Focus podcast. I'm going to bring you a weekly short message on where you put your focus as it relates to sales and building successful business relationships. Knowing where your focus goes, your energy flows. I'm Dan Manginelli, the author of the books Wake Up, Jumpstart the Life You've Always Had in Mind, and Shake It Up, Big Dreams and Bold Choices on the Road to Success. A national speaker on staying motivated and inspired with the right mindset and coach top salespeople around the nation. So let's get going with WTF. Welcome back to the WTF Where's the Focus podcast and some Scooby-Doo, Jen. You like that? I'm going to rock the Kobe today. I'm going the Black Mamba Kobe today.
I like it.
You like that? All right. We have a great guest this week. It's the third week of September. Can you believe that? Life just keeps rolling on. We have magnificent boss lady, Jen, on the board today, and the applause come in because everybody loves Jen. On production, we have Big E trying to keep me on the rails, so these edits don't have to be so much. Please hit and like the subscribe button to help us out on the WTF. I really, really need your help, or I think this team is going to drop me. Jen, you going to keep me if I don't get people to subscribe? Or
Yes.
You're going to almost keep me around? I appreciate that. It's okay. It's also week 2 of the NFL. Bum right into the books. There were some great games I watched this weekend, and I really do enjoy Sunday to watch football. And I always get this antsy and think, some of you probably do too, like, dude, you should be doing something more productive. Get off your butt, go right, work out, take your wife out, go play with the kids. And then the commercial's over and I'm back watching the game, hoping my team covers the spread. So you might have also noticed that fine little E that shows up in your podcast sometimes that says explicit. That happened last week. So if it's on your podcast and you say, hey, so I guess I'm saying D-bag, Jen, but I think there was douche, I think, but I keep saying douche. Well, that's why I found out it's a bad word. So I'm going to do my best. Or if with the E symbol, I could throw F-bombs at random.
Right.
I mean, I can now, right? Yeah. If I want to, but let's just kind of keep it clean here on the WTF. What a treat this week. We have a good friend and top producer in the real estate field, David Caldwell. I have been blessed. Well, I'm going to do it again in a second. I've been blessed to know him for about 7 years. Oh, quick on the finger, Jen. I said applause. Every time I say his name now, David, every time I say your name, David, we're just going to hit the applause.
Perfect.
I've been blessed to know him about 7 years and partner with him to help others to succeed. Since 2007, David has worked in the real estate in various capacities. Currently, he leads a team of agents that sells over 100 homes annually throughout the Portland metro area, advising home buyers and sellers on how to navigate the ever-changing real estate market. He also works as a top business coach for the Tom Ferry International, the world's leading real estate coaching program, where he fosters education and helps implement impactful skills in sales, marketing, and leadership development. In coaching clients, it allows them to bring knowledge to their teams and community. He's passionate about helping others live better and learning everything there is to know about life and real estate. He's the principal real estate broker of Hillshire Real Estate, top performer, and top real estate coach, David Caldwell. Look at now she's got the button, David.
I need that button.
Welcome to the WTF Where's the Focus podcast. David, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you. How are you, Dan?
Good. We're having some fun. Probably a little too much fun here in studio without a doubt. I'm going to jump right to it because there's so much to go. There's just so much in sales that your big brain has that I want to get so much out of it. The last time we sat down and had dinner, I needed a pen and paper. So let's start from the beginning. What got you into selling real estate?
I think like a lot of people in their early 20s, I didn't know what to do. And I was actually like a bartender and server and wasn't quite sure what I was going to do professionally. And surprisingly, like a guy who would come into the bar often just kind of convinced me to explore the opportunity. And I had no reason to say no. And yeah, I mean, it was just like, it was luck, right? Or I don't know. Like maybe it was meant to be. But the guy's name's David Tangvald. I still have a relationship with him today, and like he made me work hard. Like a lot of real estate companies, I think they're like, they'll just hire anybody.
Right.
And like he made me earn it. And that was a cool thing. Like in retrospect, looking at, like, he made me work really hard to go get that opportunity to work at his office. um
Did you still have to pour him drinks when you're?
I, I did work the first probably like 2 or 3 years of my career. I worked at PF Chang's, and the very first sale I ever made was someone who was sitting at one of my tables. They asked where a real estate office was, and I told them where a couple were. And I said, well, I also just got my real estate license, and I'm going to be off like at 5 o'clock, and I don't have to work tomorrow.
Did you
And
did
yeah,
you
and I sold him a
know?
condo.
That's pretty awesome. Always selling. Did you know much about selling or real estate at the time? And like after, when did you quit your job serving? And then how were you figuring out to navigate how to sell?
So I got my first sales job when I was 15 years old at a kids furniture store.
Hmm.
And I sold children's furniture. It was my sister Julie, who you've met. Her and her husband owned a couple different furniture franchises. So they gave me a job like right before I turned 16 years old. So I was 15 years old. My sister started training me on sales, how to sell. My brother-in-law. I worked my way up through different furniture stores, but I had to put together deals. We had to negotiate. There were certain margins, and if we maintained margins, vendors would give us splits. And it was before like the IKEA days and things like that, where people still had to go to the mall and buy furniture. It was like in the late 1990s. And I was even like reading sales books, when I was in high school. I think my junior year in high school, I made around $40,000 in commissions, working part-time. Like I was not, it was a commission job if I could exceed my hourly rate through commissions. And yeah, I just, I read about sales at a young age. So
When did you kind of figure out or believe, like maybe not even till today for some of us, right? But when did you believe or figured out you were pretty good at selling, or you had a vibe where you could tell where there was buying signs? Within my career, I can remember that. Did you have a time that you figured out, you know what, I'm pretty good at this?
I always felt like I was like, from like 16 years old, I felt like I was good at sales, because in the company I worked for, I would rank really high as a salesperson, and I was like half the age of everybody.
Right.
Where I felt like I really became a good salesperson, or good with asking questions. So I think that's what a lot of sales is. Was Dean Ayers, who is like a OG, Mike Ferry, Tom Ferry coach. He was Kathy Ferry's business partner. He was mentoring me to become a coach. And they were basically giving like shout outs, all the mentor coaches to all, everyone in the Tom Ferry organization. And he gave me one where he just said, David asked the best questions.
Right.
And that, for me, that was like an aha moment. Like, oh, I'm good at this thing. Like I had already sold lots of houses by then. I had been coaching. I'd like built a team, but we're talking, I mean, that's like 15 years later that I have like this realization.
Yeah, did you ever feel like you were selling? That word sales is like just a weird word in itself, because everybody thinks like you're pushing something on somebody. But because you
Yeah.
asked the question, did you ever feel like you were where you were selling?
So I always like, I said this probably today multiple times on coaching calls, that you have to sell people on you, and they have to trust you before you can become their advisor. And then you're just advising and helping people make decisions.
Right.
So there is a sale and like building trust immediately, and people letting me take them through. Like if I was in high school selling kids furniture, or in the real estate sales business, getting someone to trust me to represent them on the purchase or sale. So I don't think it's a dirty word. I think it's a toxic trait in the real estate industry right now, that people say the word salesy and forget that they're a salesperson. Like you have to sell people on your expertise so they can say yes to you, and then you can transition into an advisor. Like I don't think I'm going to say anything that's going to make anyone want to buy or sell real estate. It's going to make them buy the wrong thing, but I do have to sell them on me.
Makes complete sense. So you started selling real estate. What made you at one point in time say, you know what, building a team is actually where, besides me, myself, just doing all of it or figuring out with the assistant, what made you want to build a team? Or where were you when you figured out this is the direction I want to go?
So I was 3 years into the business, and I hired like an administrative assistant. And I think like my sales history went like 3, 8, 100 or something crazy. Like we had really like exponential growth. And I think at that time I was really lucky that I transitioned to a national real estate company that was really bullish on building teams, being Keller Williams, in 2009.
Uh,
And I was in an office with really great leaders that were trying to open up everyone's mind to the fact that teams can outproduce individuals and that people should stay, in their respective lanes to a certain extent.
right.
And so I was lucky that I was, influenced by the right leaders that made me think bigger than my, individual sales.
Right. So as you're talking about sales, and I'm kind of know the answer to this as I'm just asking it because you coach so many people. As a salesperson, do you think it's a learned skill or is it something I hear like I'll do role playing, I'll do coaching and maybe, oh, it sounds so great coming off your lips. You're just a natural salesperson. And I don't believe that. And I'm just asking you, do you believe
No.
a salesperson's a learned skill?
I do think it's a learned skill. I think some people have a head start in their ability. I think some people have some natural behaviors that give them a jump start, but I think when it comes to sales, it's all question asking and building rapport and knowing your product, which is a learned skill.
Right. I mean, consistently learn skill. I mean, asking questions and the right questions and leading questions and putting people, but I think you said something that was important, advising people. I think
Yeah.
that is kind of a key to what people we lose a little bit when we're talking about sales. You're advising people.
Yeah, your business, my business, they're advisory businesses.
Correct.
And people do really forget that it's not just like opening a door and filling out a sales contract. A lot of times when, like if I'm on an airplane, that's what I do for a living. I don't say I'm a real estate business coach or a real estate agent. I say I'm a professional advice giver.
Right. Which makes complete sense.
Yeah.
And you're just advising people for the right decision. And something's weird about when I'm actually meeting someone and they think that I'm selling that portion of I'm actually being sold too. Because
Yeah.
if there's a bond and a relationship with that person, you get invested not only in them and their family and everything. So that everybody has the ability some way to pull people in. They just don't realize it's there.
I agree.
Yeah. What got you into coaching salespeople?
So I felt like I had hit like a gap in my, or like a wall maybe, or ceiling in my leadership. And I mean, you were there, and maybe it was a drunk monkey I had for myself, but we were selling 175, 200 homes a year. We were doing really well. But there was like something on my shoulder telling me that I couldn't hire or really build top performers. And I was really lucky that like years and years ago, I met Tom and Kathy and Steve Belmonte. Steve Belmonte was the president of Tom's company. And I just expressed this to him that, I felt like I had this gap. And it was just kind of this conversation of like, well, why don't you come through coaches training and coach for us? And then you'll know if you have the chops or not.
Right.
And so I was like, well, yeah, what a better way to learn the skill and see if I can do it than by doing it with like what I perceived at the time as the number one coaching organization and in all sorts of rankings is with a great mentor or great mentorship and great coaches all around that I had been part of. And, it seemed really like logical to like go build the skill. Like it was a great way to go build the skill. So my intentions in becoming a coach originally, I tell people all the time, were like actually quite selfish, like it was about me overcoming, a perceived lack that I felt like I had as a leader.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So right now, what's the biggest production? Don't give me names because I don't want to get in any trouble or anything, but what is the biggest agent you're coaching right now, production wise?
Yeah. So I coach a team that does over $1 billion in sales. And I have like a handful of teams that are not, $500 million in sales.
It's pretty good. I mean, if you want,
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's like maybe there's like 10 teams in the country doing over $1 billion in sales. It's pretty rare air, which is a cool place to be now, considering like in 2017, my thought was, well, I can't even like hire someone doing 30 million in sales.
And now you have these big numbers, which raises the bar for everybody, right? I mean, you realize it's possible to do things that you didn't have in the same industry you're in, and realize people do it at the highest level they can. So doing that with those higher level people, do you see a common trait in top salespeople that you identify? And I'm saying salespeople and just not even advisors or there's usually a common trait. And do you see that do you notice?
Yeah, like one of the biggest things that I see is they all have these humongous growth mindsets, and they're just completely open to growth. and they want to get better. And like, I don't like when someone calls themselves an expert, because I think when people start calling themselves experts, they stop growing.
Yeah.
Like, they're all students, right? They're all like trying to grow and learn every day.
Right.
Um, Tony Robbins calls it the achiever's curse. They all have the achiever's curse, right? They're all trying to get better. Like, nothing lives up to their standard, which can be agonizing sometimes for people. And sometimes as a coach to be like, hey, like, take a step back and recognize where you're at. You know, one of the gals on my team the other day, she's like, I'm just trying to survive. I'm like, you're looking at the best or the wrong benchmarks, because you're thriving.
Yeah. You're
Like any metric, you're thriving. And I'm like, if you can get past that and acknowledge that you're thriving, you'll grow even faster.
Yeah. I, for myself and doing kind of the same, and we've mentored multiple people there. I think there's what I come to is the things that need to get done. And I'm always big on saying there's only one simple thing that separates the average from the achiever. Now you're achieving at a high level, but there's a lot of average people that want to do that. And there's one simple thing is the achiever's willing to do what the average is not. I mean,
100%.
that's really it. And I've always taken it as my 6 traits in coaching myself and salespeople, in many professions. I'm not just talking about real estate. There's always a consistent, and just the quick 6 for me is plan. They always prepare to be successful, and they don't deviate from the plan. And 2, they have discipline to finish what they start. They don't stop when it gets tough. And that's a real part of it. It always gets tough. 3 is accountability to themselves and to others in their lives. They all have coaches because they all know if you could keep yourself accountable, you'd already be doing it. That's a big thing. You'd weigh as much as you want. You'd succeed. If you can keep yourself accountable, you'd already be doing it. 4 is knowledge. They know their craft. They read books and they learn and they stay positive. 5 is comfortable being uncomfortable, because that's a big one you have to master, because 100%. No one's going to get to the next level without that. And they push and do things even when they don't feel like it. Because there's many times me or you can wake up and say, I'm just not feeling it today. But you have to have that ability to do that. And 6 is career. They take pride in their career, just what you talked about. They talk about it with this passion. It's not a hobby, it's a passion. They have a clear purpose with a goal, with the determination of the winner comes out when that happens, when you actually, this is my career, this is what I do, and this is what I'm passionate about. So it's my quick 6 on just kind of what I see when we identify.
Love it.
What makes it okay as you're coaching people, and I know for myself, to be brutally honest with another salesperson without offending or demotivating them? Because there's a lot of defensiveness that goes in sometimes when you're putting people at a high level, when you're saying, not necessarily you're doing it wrong, but it would be better if you saw it this way. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, I think that's the expectation. I think when you are in an advisory role, people expect that honesty. And with some people's personalities, you might have to say it softer, and some people you might have to say it more direct. And that's something you learn through like trust while you're building a relationship and coaching that person. There's a team that I started coaching, and it took about a month before I got really honest, because I felt like for the first month, I really need to build rapport and let them know that we're on the same team. And once I knew that they understood that, then I could get really direct and start pointing out the things that I think we have to do. And I think the reality, one of the things I always talk about is, growth requires tough conversations, right? Like growth requires a lot of things. But one of the things that growth does require is the ability to have a tough conversation, both from, a coach talking to their mentor, mentee, however we want to put it, and or the person listening, right? To be able to receive that feedback and know how to go change to do better.
Yeah, I believe also that you could tell a lot about a person on how they handle their tough conversations. Because most people want to avoid them. And it's hard when you have to tell someone, here's a tough conversation, this is what you're doing, and it's not working. So we have to find another path to do that. And, some people don't want to hear it. Some people need to hear it. Some people get offended, but then they come back and go, that was the best thing ever. And I'm a real believer that we all need people in our lives that are abundant in grace, that are overflowing with compassion and courageous in the truth. And that's the big one, because that's how you get wisdom, is when you have people around you that are just courageous in the truth, that this is the truth. And a lot of times, especially in sales, we want to skirt around it and say things that maybe not are the things that are the way it's supposed to be. We want to sugarcoat it. But when you're brutally honest with someone, there's a respect factor as an advisor, as you just said. It's a big difference. And is that what you see pretty much with your clients as well?
100%. And like one thing I was thinking about as you were talking about that, talking about the truth, most of these people I'm coaching, there's 6 30-minute calls a month.
Mhm.
I have 36 hours with them a year to make a big impact.
Right.
And you have to like cut to the chase very quickly and be very observant and be willing to be completely truthful with them.
Yeah.
Like one of my calls today, I was like, look, based on our call last week, here's the things I thought about literally all week. Here's what we have to like go after today. And what was awesome was my client thanked me for that. Like he thanked me for thinking about his business all week. Like every time I thought about your business, this is what I thought about. Every time I reflected on our last call, this is what I kept thinking about. Like, are we on the same page?
What's the biggest thing you have to have when you're talking them overcome? Is there something there's just besides the prospecting and the things that they know they're probably doing anyway? Is there something that you have to overcome? Is it time? Is it effort, or is it building them, coaching other people? What do you think the biggest thing is?
You know, at the point of a lot of teams that I coach, it's scale, right? And it's getting them to believe in their abilities as a leader. I think like what I had, a lot of them have it. Like there isn't this like false confidence. Everyone's trying to do something they haven't done before. And it's really trying to get them to believe in what they're capable of.
Yeah.
Like one of the questions I've asked a lot recently is, not to my team leaders, but to the people on their sales teams, like who's on pace to achieve their goal this year? And most people have not. Right? Like that's just the reality. Most people's goals they write down are bigger than what they achieve. But I'm like, you guys, when you wrote that number down, that's what you believed your potential was.
Right.
That was your potential. Like you chose the number, you looked at that as your potential. And between where your potential was and where your is, in between is the 6 things basically that you said. But I've been talking about, it's discipline, it's focus,
Right.
it's belief,
Right.
it's hard work, right? Most importantly, it's hard work in between. It's working on high probability conversion versus just busy work, which a lot of salespeople just live in busy work.
Yeah.
But most people underachieve their potential because they're just not disciplined enough. And with a lot of these teams, it's narrowing their focus to what they're great at and helping them just savagely execute that thing, right? Like not getting lost in the story they tell themselves why they're successful, being really observant about why they are successful and getting them to lean into that.
You use the word conversion, which kind of brings me to that, because I think that I believe that at a higher rate when you're performing, your conversion rate of whatever it is that you're doing, if it's leads, if it's selling homes, if it's buyer, do you see the difference in the achievers and in the average and whatever it would be on how they convert an actual lead that comes in?
Yeah, well, there's a much more systematic approach with the best, right? The best, they have better scripts. They have their stories figured out. They have more conversations. They are more confident in navigating the objections. Ultimately, in everything that we do in real estate sales, we're trying to get face-to-face, voice-to-voice. Right? If we can skip there right away, we get to the sale faster. With a lot of people that are trying to like lead receive these days through marketing, you're still trying to get someone to like slide into your DMs so that you can get voice to voice or face to face with them.
Right.
But what I find with the people who are the highest achievers, they get to the face to face and voice to voice faster.
Got it. And that's where the conversion comes in, is getting face to face and voice to voice. And I think that's what we miss. I think we miss that. I think that unfortunately, the COVID year or the old pandemic year or whatever, it took us away from realizing that is part of the relationship building when you're doing it, and
100%.
getting face to face and voice to voice. And the other part I want, to bring up is, and the conversion rate, even though it gets to sales quicker, I'm sure there's been people that you've had that you followed up on because you have a system that they've bought something a year, 2 years. What is your longest, do you think, that you've worked or nurtured either seller or buyer that they ended up, buying?
Well, I think the best agents annually have several deals that convert that are 5 years old, 6 years old, 7 years old, 4 years old. And that's a question that I ask sometimes. Like I even put a poll out on Instagram, or not a poll, I just asked a question like, hey, tell me a story about, how many leads you convert that are 4 years old or longer. And a lot of the responses I got were people had never done that. right? But then you see top achiever after top achiever after top achiever tell a story about it. Well, I just converted one that was 7 years old. I just converted one that was this many years old. I just converted one that was this many years old.
That's where I just wanted to get into it's the face-to-face and voice-to-voice is important, but it's just not a one-shot, one kill. It's definitely the nurturing of a relationship.
Yeah. One of the things I've been really hot on right now with like the sales teams that I coach is little check-ins create big opportunities. And people forget that, right? Because every time we follow up with someone, the average real estate agent, they believe that they have to make a sale on that call. But the exceptional agents know they're just building a relationship. And that's a big difference, right?
It's a big difference. And the necessity of having to make that sale isn't as important to someone who this is going to be my only sale this year. So they know I can nurture this and take the time.
Yeah.
Because you have to do that. That's part of being successful long term. Because there's a whole bunch of people that get in our industry short term. Right?
There's a slide deck, or in my slide decks when I speak, there's always a slide that I show. It says every business should be focused on client acquisition and client retention at all times.
Right.
But when does someone become a client? Like in our business and your and my business, it's when they recognize us as the professional and they'd be willing to refer us. It's not when they transact. It's not like when we earn a commission. It's when they're like a champion for us. It's when they're willing to think about us if they were going to do the transaction or refer us. And like little check-ins create those type of relationships.
Yeah. Say that again, what you said, little check-ins or check-ins to
little check-ins create big opportunities.
I think that if anybody, if you're driving, please don't write that down. But if you're watching this right now, grab a pen and write that down, because I'm just going to go on record as saying that's true for any relationship. I think that
100%.
The short-term check-ins, maybe with my wife or my kids or with my friends, are for the long term of what it does. And we lose that as we get older. We lose that ability sometimes to realize we have to keep checking in with people. That's long-term relationships, how you do it.
I was texting with a coaching client this morning and she goes, it really meant a lot to me last week when you text me, how are you doing? Because people don't ask me that very often. It's funny. People don't ask me that very often either. And it's like one of the things I like gripe about with like my sister and my mom. Like people just call me about what they need and no one ever asks me how I am. Right. I just want someone to say how's your day? And
how do you feel?
Exactly. Yeah. But here's this other like really high achieving agent, that I have the pleasure of working with, and she's thanking me for that. Like, hey, I had a hard week last week, and like out of nowhere, he asked me how I was, and it meant a lot to me.
Right. I think that is important.
Little check-ins.
Little check-ins are hugely important. What do you think your favorite part of just being in real estate, the real estate field itself?
I like helping people through like complex emotional problems, and I think that's what a real estate transaction usually it is. I think that's what coaching is. What I realized, like where I'm best is kind of like sitting in this seat or turned around with someone on my couch and doing skill transfer. I love that. I love learning. And
Help
then I
go back a
love
little bit. Help me with skill transfer. What's that mean?
So like John Maxwell's 5 levels of leadership, the 4th level is skills. It's basically skill transfer. It's I help you get better, right? Like I help take the knowledge that I have and pour it into you to bring you up, right? And then hopefully you do that and bring someone else up. Right. That's my favorite part, right? I love sitting on the couch at a listing presentation, right? And not having a presentation, having a consultation. And just talking to the people about what their perceived challenges are in the market or what direction they're going and helping them make that transition. In coaching, whether it was coaching newer agents a long time ago or even some of the solo agents I still coach today because I've coached them for 4 or 5 years, these big mega teams, I just like helping people grow. Like that's what I'm best at. And that's what keeps me motivated like throughout the day.
Do you feel that you have an obligation? Do you wake up thinking I have an obligation to find a way to help these people succeed?
I don't know if I like feel an obligation to it as much as I feel like someone's given me this opportunity,
right?
And like, I want to live up to it. I have this goal. It's really selfish. But I call it fill the stadium. I have all these goals that I've named. and fill the stadium is like, if I passed away unexpectedly, I'd want so many people to be so messed up about it that I could literally like fill a football people with people like celebrating my life. But you can only do that if you make a big impact.
Yeah. No,
So I really just have this desire to like make a big impact
right.
on a lot of people. And the people that allow me to be that person in their life, I feel a real responsibility to show up and do it.
Yeah. I think that's the key of showing up. There's been no
Yeah.
doubt with this. So
Yeah.
many people don't, right? I think that we both know in coaching and both know in trying to groom people to be better, to want to be better, to get them to do things that they don't want to do, to help them achieve what they want to achieve. It's a difficult task. And with that has to come a passion that you see more in them sometimes that they see in themselves.
Totally.
Because a lot of people, unfortunately, have that little guy in their head telling them all the things that the insecurities they already know. Like, this is about me. I don't look right. I don't feel right. I'm not a salesperson, whatever it is. And it's great that, as you're saying, the feeling that you have when you're able to bring something out of somebody that they kind of knew they had and it was tucked away in there, but you can pull it out and say, no, that is actually a quality of a winner. And that's where you want it to be.
Totally. I think sometimes like my superpower as a coach is being unimpressed,
Yeah.
but I just believe at my core that everyone can be better.
Yeah. Well, we
so
all
wherever,
can. I mean, but both of us read a lot and both of us, listen to a lot of stuff. And both of us are in the same boat where we want to be consistent learners. And really the consistent learning for me, and I'm sure it's the same way for you, it's kind of to help other people. I mean, I'm seeing with it myself and it helps me tremendously, but then what do I do with it? Like having all this in me to say I can answer questions and overcome objections and do whatever it is. How do I get that out to other people is more what I think about when I'm taking it in. I use it to myself and I use it when I'm helping, but it's more for me like, how do I get this to other people? How do I fulfill their needs more than myself sometimes?
Yeah, 100%. Like when I get to speak at events, I always say like I'm speaking to the back of the room that wants to be in the front of the room.
Right.
A lot of people speak to the front of the room.
Right.
I'm trying to speak to the back of the room that wants to get to the front someday. And that's important. That creates an impact. That's meaningful to me. But yeah, the things that I read, I do think about like, well, how is this going to make me a better man? How's this going to make me a better husband, a better friend?
Right.
Like, how's it going to help me achieve all my whys? Because I got a lot of them.
Yeah.
Right. Some of them are very selfish and some of them are like purely for others. But ultimately, everything I take in is like, how is this going to impact all these, just becoming a better version of myself so I can make a greater impact.
What, as you're saying, getting the people from the back of the room to the front of the room, what do you see the back of the room people? What is their biggest obstacle or just one of the obstacles you consistently see that they have to overcome to push themselves to get closer to the front of the room?
I think a lot of people in the back of the room or a lot of people starting don't acknowledge that growth requires investment. And that investment could be monetary or it could just be time. But a lot of people just aren't willing to put in the work. And I think that's the biggest challenge for a lot of those folks is they just haven't acknowledged yet that growth requires investment.
So how do you pull that investment portion of them? So they're back there and you're speaking to them. And how do you have them understand that it's going to require more than you're giving right now?
Yeah. So I think as a real estate coach, your ability to get people to change their businesses all in what you went back to earlier in execution.
Right.
So the simpler I could make execution, if I could talk about a complex strategy and make it sound really simple or give people the ability to execute, or maybe even just like one of the things I talked about at Tom's big event in Dallas was instead of just sending someone a CMA, like go talk to them about it. Yeah. And go talk to them about their plans. Right. And go talk to them about this. And we branded it so it sounds sexy. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I'm basically saying do a CMA for a client, call them, ask to go talk to them about it in person, talk about the market, talk about the outlook, talk about their goals, create an opportunity for reciprocity and question asking, and cement your relationship as the real estate professional.
Yeah.
And like a lot of people, it's like, I don't know, it's like it blew their minds, right? Like they had never thought about it. But all it is, like everyone said, like do an unsolicited CMA or do a CMA a day or do this. I just said, go sit down at the table and talk to them about it.
Gotcha. Now, for those people, unfortunately, that aren't in real estate, CMA stands for?
Yeah, comparative market analysis.
Gotcha. What's your house is worth, or what?
Yeah.
Basically from there. Just want to use lingo for those, my soccer fans and my, women's of influence fans and all the other people that we have. I just want to make sure we don't use acronyms, because me and you will start throwing them out and people will go,
Yeah.
what are they talking about?
So to anyone who's not in the real estate space, it's basically saying, go sit down with your client, talk about your profession and the professional outlook of what you do. Ask them if they have any questions or concerns or plans, and really be a consultant and let them know that it's safe for them to ask you questions without getting pulled into like the sales trap.
Right. And the reason why I'm in the podcast of Where is the Focus, I think that all of us just realize that we're all selling, we're all building relationships. We just happen to be in a sales profession, but you could be in any profession. You have to sell somewhere and get over the obstacles I just talked about, or that back of the room obstacle that you just said, right? I mean, so I don't care if it's furniture at 15 or if it's, collecting. Do people collect for newspapers anymore? Jen, do you know what a newspaper is? It was a piece of paper that people know. You don't know what that is?
Just Twitter.
Just Twitter. Okay. Sorry about that. Let me use another analogy. That tells you, I just dated myself there, David, collecting for newspapers. So whatever it is that you're trying to do, there's a sales to it. And really what it is, a relationship where people wanted to know and trust you. And that's really what, we're getting at. I didn't want to stop you on the CMA, but it really what it is the same thing. You're building a relationship because you're talking to them about whatever it is in your hand to help them, advise them where they want to reach their goals. And that's an important part. I mean, if one of my biggest, obviously the hugest Zig Ziglar fan, but I mean, if I can help anybody else get what they want, I can get anything else I want in life, and just summed it up and with that, but it's just so
100%.
true. I mean,
yeah, I totally believe and live that.
Yeah. And that's it. So, as we're running up against it here, I don't want to keep you too long. You got a whole bunch of stuff I'm sure you have to. What's the next big achievement, much big goal for David Caldwell?
I'm trying to build like my sales organization, my real estate business. So I'd like to be one of those like $500 million plus volume teams, which I know we're capable of being. And, one of the goals that I wrote down this year was for my team to do over 250 million in sales, and to co-coach 3 teams with my mentor, which I think would be like a really big accomplishment. And right now I co-coach 1 team with him. So I got to get him to listen to this podcast, so he'll hear that I want to do more teams with him.
I think it helps that if you could leverage this in any way to help you anybody's goals, that's what we want to do here. No doubt.
Yeah. So, I've had a goal for a long time that like the year I turn 40, I want to do 250 million in sales. And I want to continue trying to coach at the highest level, right? If I can secretly be one of the top real estate coaches in the country, like that's a goal. So
that's awesome. To do better, we have to be better. And you're the man wanting to always do better. And what a blessing to have you on today. Thank you so much for taking your time, your busy day to spend with us. Hopefully this helps others know what it takes, how to keep the focus. It's not just selling or sending stuff out. I love the fact that it's face-to-face, voice-to-voice. That's important. Ladies and gentlemen, David Caldwell. That's where you push the button right there. Not that button, wrong button. Push another button. That's the applause button. Take that one off. Oh, there you go. I hit an applause button. Let's go. See, there we go. David Caldwell. We're just working out the kinks, David. If I want to buy a home in Oregon right now, where do I find you?
Yeah, the best way would just email me, david@hillshirerealtygroup.com, or you can go to our website, hillshirerealtygroup.com, or on Instagram, I'm David C. Caldwell. You can message me there.
Awesome. Reach out on that. Now, I know you're not taking any new coaching clients right now, but if I was in the real estate industry and was looking for coaching to get to the next level, where should I go?
Yeah, like you could message me as well, and I could put you in touch, with Tom's office, or go to tomferry.com. That's who I coach with. Personally, I'm still a client of his company, and Jared Davis is my coach. And we have a lot of amazing coaches. And as real estate coaching companies rank, Tom is consistently at the top.
Yeah. And I'm going to say it again. If you keep yourself accountable, you'd already be doing it. As I said, my 6 traits, one of them is accountability, and having a person on your side to help you be better is something we all need. I don't care if you're a quarterback, you have a quarterback coach. If you're whatever you are, if you're a golfer, you have a golf coach. You have someone that helps you. Even though you could be great at what you do, you always want to be better. So make sure you take it.
Hey, coaches help you see what's right in front of your face so you don't notice, right? Like that's our job, like just to help you make those little incremental changes that create huge results. And I coach some coaches, and it's pretty funny to point some of those things out sometime. And then my coach does it to me. So yeah, everyone needs a coach.
I agree. Thanks again for your time. Thank you for your partnership and your friendship for long term. I really appreciate that. Make sure you subscribe and like and share this with anyone you know that should watch it. Anybody in any kind of thing that doesn't have to be in sales. Just make sure you share it and have them and yourself and everybody you know subscribe. Please leave your comments and your questions. Send me your stories. And I'd love to hear about getting you on the W.T.F. Where's the Focus? You can get it on Dan@manginelligroup.com. Until next week, have fun and make dreams come true.